I'd like to welcome to our show today, Sherita Wallace. Sherita is a lawyer turned marketing strategist turned real estate investor. And just when we reconnected, we knew each other from many years ago, and we reconnected and realized all of a sudden we're coming back into the same space. It was just really exciting for me and to see kind of what you've accomplished. And I found it really just inspirational. And I thought it would be an awesome fit to have you on the show to let you tell your story and share some tidbits of value with our audience. And so, welcome. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm actually super excited to be here. The crazy thing is, you and I we've talked, over the phone when we
Yeah.
reconnected and stuff like that. But we physically have not put eyes on each other probably in over 10 years, maybe more like 15. I think that makes you old, Alex.
Do you see the gray hair? I'm actually liking the gray hair in my beard. I'm okay with getting a little bit older.
It's a good look. I told my husband, grow the grays. People pay you more.
Oh, cool. I hadn't even thought of that. Okay. Well, let's go with it. So Sharita, just tell us a little bit about that journey, right? So lawyer. So I met you when you were in law school. So
Yes,
okay,
you did.
that was part of that path. But then all these wines that life takes, just kind of catch us up on how that journey went.
Well, I definitely feel like a cat because I've had at least 3 lives, probably more. I'm probably forgetting some lives in between. But yes, like you said, you met me in law school. We have a mutual friend, love him so much. Um, and I really thought that at that time, I thought, I'm going to do the partner track. I'm going to make partner and I'm going to be, in 10 years, I'll definitely have at least, made equity partner at that point. And I don't know if I thought I was going to retire out as an attorney at that time because I come from a family of entrepreneurs, but I knew that I was going to own like a couple of rental properties, but that's all I saw. I was going to be a landlord, because that's
Mhm.
what I saw my parents doing, and so I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to own a couple of properties. I'm going to make partner in 10 years and then I'll figure out the rest of the stuff later, um, that didn't happen.
Okay.
I spent like 2.5 years practicing law and had no life. I worked for a really great firm in Virginia. It was the second largest firm in that region, and for all intents and purposes, a mid-sized firm. But anyone who's ever worked for a law firm, especially a relatively large law firm, you have no life. And I practiced employment law there. I was a part of the employment law department. We had multiple departments there. And so I had one weekend off. My husband was enjoying his time with our friends. And I mean, our family lived in different places. So, I saw them and talked to them when I could, but I really had no life. And my husband and I, at that time, even when we were dating, we both were business minded. We had business Tuesdays is what we called it. So even though we both were working these W-2 jobs, we were every Tuesday night, we would, and this is like literally why we're dating. We would have these business meetings and talk about, okay, well, we can start this online business and here's another business idea. And then we need to research like how we're going to get there. And I can't remember at this time if we had real estate folded in there, but I do know, again, like since day one, because I saw my parents as landlords, I was like, I know somehow, some way I need to like fold real estate in there because, at the time I was thinking it could kind of like supplement my income or something like that. Um, and so I just remember like it was one holiday. I can't remember which holiday it was. It was either leading into Thanksgiving or leading into Christmas and the New Year holiday. And that had been like at least 15 years ago. I came home and I was just in tears, like exhausted with work. And, of course, I'm over here like, and explaining to my husband everything's going on. Like, I don't know if I can take this anymore. And he's just looking at me so calmly because he's the person that balances me. And he said, you know what? Tomorrow, we're going to write your letter of resignation. And then when you get back from the holidays, you're going to give it to your boss. And I was like, yeah. I was like, are you sure?
Now, at that point, did you know that's what you wanted? Or was his permission just kind of liberating? Or was it something like an idea that you just hadn't occurred to you, or that you wouldn't really let
Yeah,
grow into action?
that's a good question. I think it was a combination of things. I think it was definitely liberating, like having his permission, because, you know, we definitely, since day one, we have been great partners. And I don't think I knew at the time what that would mean. You know, you don't really know until you take a leap of faith what all that entails. But I knew that if he's saying, let's do this, he was confident enough in me and in the process that we would be okay. You know, we had already been having business Tuesdays, you know.
I love that. I love that idea, and I'm totally going to steal it. Because, in addition to business, a marriage, a relationship is a business too, right? And so that can just take so many forms. And
It really
it could
can.
be something as simple as, hey, let's just open up the mail and pay some bills. Or it could turn on to, hey, let's change the course of our lives, like what you guys did.
That's so true.
That's
So we
beautiful.
were
I love that.
like, and that's really what he was saying. Let's pick up the most viable idea that we were working on during those meetings. And like literally that's what we did. We were like, we're gonna start our online business, and not online business in the stance of like selling products or things like that. We were selling ideas and selling a community is really what we were doing. We essentially wanted to become like the Facebook of nonprofit and faith-based like organizations in life. And that really was just one of the businesses that we were thinking about, but we knew there was something to online. Part of also what I did in practicing law, I focused on the legal implications of social media in the workplace. So I had
Mhm.
already had like a background in just online marketing from just the legal standpoint and understanding it from like, okay, well, what does this mean for like with the FTC and things like that? And so, and even the marketing, you know, the only way you can explain to an employer, you know, how does social media affect your workplace? Well, first they need to understand how they're using it for marketing, you know? And so that marketing piece was something I had already been studying just as a part of the work I was doing as an attorney. It's just so funny how everything you do along the way in these different lives, like it leads you up to this next thing. And so it was liberating. I can't say that it, you know, the online business was like the plan all along. You know, yeah, it was a plan, but I think originally we thought we both would work our W-2s, or at least me, longer, and then, you know, jump into it once I had done like more research in that
Mhm.
area. So it was a combination of things. And I think I knew I needed to leave like a year ago, like prior to. I knew I wanted to leave. I knew I needed to leave, but I wasn't uncomfortable enough yet. You know, sometimes you have to get uncomfortable enough to finally go ahead and do what you should have done a long time ago.
Very cool. Very powerful. And it's interesting. I'm sure when you became a real estate investor, what you just mentioned about the idea of research. When have you researched enough? How do you know it's a good deal?
Yeah,
When
right.
do I make my offer? And at some
Yeah,
point, you got to take that leap, right? And I'm
you do.
sure that was the same kind of practice. That's the same kind of action there. It's like you can research and get educated and read, and at some point, you got to jump.
You do.
And so, very, very cool. I'm sure that'll come up again. So yeah, please. So now we left the law firm.
Hmm. Yeah, we left the law firm. You know, now I'm trying to start this like huge. I mean, I don't think I understood at the time like how huge of an endeavor I was taking on, because first of all, I knew nothing about building websites, okay, at all. I was a writer. I've always been great at writing, content writing, whether it's online, for print, whatever, whether it's a brief, you know, a memorandum, whatever it is. And so I had to learn basically just at least the 101s of website design, and really even beyond that, because eventually what I learned through this is like, you need to outsource. Okay. There's certain, you have your strengths, you need to let other people do what they do well, let them do it, because it's your time is your money. And so, which was that was a huge, that was a huge thing for me, because you got to understand, my husband and I, we were both working at the time. I had an attorney's salary. I went from having an attorney's salary to zero, okay, and like not being able to financially contribute to my family. That was major for me. Thankfully, I'm a huge saver. So, we had money saved up because we used that money to invest in our business. And then even moving into Georgia, like, I think after I quit my job, I want to say we moved to Georgia like 4 or 5 months later.
Oh, wow. Okay. A lot of change. Yeah.
It was a lot of changes at one time. And mind you, we had only been married like 6 months.
Oh, interesting.
Like, it was just like,
That's funny. That's one of those other basic principles that I think, it holds a lot of us back. And we all have like our map of what life is supposed to be. It's like, oh, I'm going to go to law school. Then I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to do that. And then I'll be happy. And the truth is, like what you're describing, is that life is messy and all these things are kind of happening concurrently. And we just got to kind of survive and manage and make progress.
yes.
And we really have no control. And so that's,
No, we
or
don't.
very little control, I guess.
We don't. So literally it was that fast for me. Like it was like, I want to say, I'm just going to say November, because I can't quite remember what day it was that I resigned. And I stayed with the firm for like a month. So let's say that I stayed with them till the beginning of January, which I think that's what it was. So prior to that, married my husband in October. Final day, mid-January at my law firm. I think it was May 4th, we moved to Georgia. Like all of this, moving in with a family member on top of that.
Oh, wow.
In their basement, okay? With no AC, okay?
In Georgia. Okay.
This could ruin your marriage. I don't recommend it for everyone. Because I'm telling you, and then 2.5 months after that, which was July, I think by that point, we found our new house and moved into that. While on top of that, trying to build this business, this online business. Fast forward, maybe like a year, 2.5 years later, we get the website going. I'm basically doing speaking engagements to basically just raise the money to just put back into the business. So I'm doing speaking engagements on online marketing 101, website design 101, social media 101. And you got to understand, this is like, when I actually started doing this, when I was practicing law, this is before Facebook business pages. I know a lot of people don't even remember when Facebook didn't even have, like, that was not a thing, okay? Mm-hmm. And so then we were well above or beyond our time when we started this online business, and not really appreciating the fact that most nonprofits, they're just trying to survive, So, you're offering this marketing platform to them, but their lives is really feast or famine. Mm-hmm. They weren't focusing on marketing. Now we're in COVID. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, I should have been marketing. If you weren't marketing before then, it's like, I hope you're still around at this point, Yeah. So we were too far ahead of our times. And I mean, the business, it didn't make it. It didn't survive. But what I was growing at the same time while trying to create this like nonprofit faith-based site that was basically we were only going to be funded by advertising. That's it. And I was, taking speaking engagements to support it financially. What grew out of that was my marketing company for business owners. Because what happened is at one of these speaking engagements, someone came up to me. It happened to be someone who owned like a radio media company. And she came up to me and she said, I have clients who could really use your services. They're business owners and stuff like that. They really could. I wish they were here in the room, to learn everything you're saying about social media. But the reality is they don't have time to do this. Could you just do it for them? that's literally what started to happen. Like I literally just started, you know what? People do not have time to learn how to do the stuff they need to do for marketing. And so that's where SD Wall, which is the marketing company that I had for like 5, 6 years, that's what grew out of that. And then I started to hone and focus on my target market, and those the clients that we really started to hone and focus on were attorneys, financial professionals, doctors. And then we kind of had like a general category where we did a few things for just general business owners. But, I started to recognize that I need to leverage the relationships and knowledge that I had. And what better, when you're talking to another attorney, it's really a fraternity. So, in their eyes, who better to do my marketing than someone who's been through what I've been through, understands how I talk, and understands that I don't know how to translate what's in my head to a normal human being.
That's why legalese is a language, right? It's a real.
Exactly. So, that's, mainly what
Oh,
I started to
perfect.
focus on: highly regulated industries. That is what our marketing company, that's who we primarily cater to.
But I
Um,
love how it came out of something that,
oh, it did.
it came out of a failure, for lack of
It
a better
was.
word, right?
That was the foundation.
That's beautiful.
I
That's
learned everything I needed to learn from the business that failed.
how awesome. Because there's no way you probably could have done that from your law career and made the leap right into that,
No,
because you wouldn't have developed the skill set, you wouldn't have identified the need and found the opportunity there. You never would have been in that room speaking at
absolutely.
that with that person. That's
Absolutely.
amazing.
Thank you, Athens. That was a that was a conference in Athens, Georgia.
How beautiful. Um, okay, so then we make the leap. Wait, before we do that, actually,
Yeah.
because of the name of the show, which I won't repeat, I'm actually not someone who says bad words very much, but
Sure.
on occasion, it's just right. You just need
Let me
to.
tell you, real estate will make you. I didn't say a lot of bad words up until really getting into real estate. I'm like, gosh, there it came out my mouth again.
But there's something to it. There's a time and a place for the emotional exclamation
It's
there.
an emphasis, is what one of
Yeah.
my good friends tells me. She said, I use them to emphasize things. I'm like, okay.
And it's I think it's beautiful. So given the name of this show,
Yes.
part of my, the impetus was the first time I was raising money for an apartment deal. And one of my contacts literally responded to me saying, "Oh, this deal has great returns, low risk." Okay, fine, but I'm too busy investing for my retirement to
Yeah.
invest in your deal. And of course, I'm okay with people saying no to me, and it might not match your criteria. Maybe you don't believe that maybe you think it's too good to be true or something. But it still hit me that I think from this person's perspective, investing was the 401k. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought that other types of investing are for millionaires or are for something, so it just wasn't something that they were aware of or considered as a real option for them. And that's kind of it hit me. I was like, people need to know that there's more out there than just your 401k, than just the stock market.
Right.
um, because the 401k is not going to change your life today, right? That's essentially, if anything, doubling down on your corporate path, right? You got
Yeah.
to stay there until it's over, to ever be able to benefit from that money. And so that's one of the powerful things about real estate for me, right? You can invest on it and you start to get some money today. You start to
Exactly.
change your life today. And um, so I guess before we jump into that, I wanted to ask about your experience in the corporate world back when you're there,
Yeah.
and just kind of that whole path. Like, what was your reaction to that whole 401k path, that whole, um, I don't know, for lack of a better word, framework that we're given, right?
Right.
Um, Now, I will say you already mentioned that you came from a family of entrepreneurs, so maybe your thinking was already different, but I'll let you kind of discuss that for us, please.
mean, I think I drank the Kool-Aid just like every American does, even non-Americans, who thankfully find their way, here, or wherever they are. I think all of us, we drink the Kool-Aid in the beginning of what we're taught. And I think Pastor Stephen Furtick says it best: you need to unlearn your limitations. And so I think for me, even though I came from a family of entrepreneurs, both my parents were still W-2s. And so my mother, she had, my parents both, like I said, they were landlords. My mother also owned 3 personal care homes, where she cared for people who were disabled or elderly. And that was really a family business that we assisted her with, as well as my aunt helped her out with that tremendously. And I'm probably missing another business, that she had at that time. But I think my mother still had the mentality of a W-2. She thought that you could not be where you wanted to be in life without that W-2. Because you gotta understand, like our parents, like they're that's another generation. And so they were taught, you stay somewhere long enough, you retire out, you get that pension, you get that Social Security check. I really don't even know if Social Security is going to be available to me. So that was one thing that was like in the back of my mind growing up. I was like, first of all, I don't even know if I'm going to get that Social Security check. So I needed to think about something else. But at the same time, there's that security blanket that you're taught to hold on to, which is that W-2, that 401k, but something inside of me said, this is not going to be enough. And so in my mind, I was like, okay, I'll get a couple of, properties and they'll supplement my income. So my first idea, I was like, okay, my first house is going to be a duplex. So I can live in one side and have someone else like pay my mortgage. Then I'm going to move on to the next property. That's kind of like how I thought I would do it. But again, I think I was going to just be satisfied with 3. 5 would have been golden, in my mind. But 3, I was like, oh, that's really all I need, something like to supplement my income, kind of stuff like that. And really, like I said, instinctively, something said, this is just not going to be enough. And as you continue to just go through life and you bump into the right people who really are steps ahead of you, you start hearing this stuff that sounds like a foreign language to you. But if you hear it long enough, something starts to click. And so, I started to realize that, for me at first, it was okay, my pillars of wealth is going to have to include a business and it's going to have to include real estate. I didn't realize the degree of real estate, like the degree to which I would be in it, until much later, but I knew it had something to do with the business. And that was part of the reasons why my husband and I were having Business Tuesdays, because we were like, we have to do something in addition to this or outside of this that can take us out of our W-2s. Because at the end of the day, you're only building someone else's wealth. Now, I will say this, I do not knock a W-2, especially when you're in a 2-people household, because you definitely can leverage that W-2 for your deals. So anyone out there who's listening, or watching, and you have a W-2, use it to leverage your deals. It doesn't mean that you have to retire out as a W-2, but single or married or whatever, while you have your W-2, you can use that to fuel your deals.
Yeah, and I always say that. I mean, survival is survival, right? We do what we need to do, and having a job to be able to put food on the table and shelter is good, right? Everyone wants, we need that. But then at a certain point, we start thinking, wouldn't it be nice to be able to have food on the table and have shelter and have my time back?
Exactly. And I think for like millennials and generations like Gen Zs, I think time is so much more valuable to us then I don't know, I love some money, but I think time is way more important to us than a paycheck. It really is. Especially I think for those of us who like were in school when the real estate crash happened. And, so many of us, like, if you had a job lined up, that offer may have been rescinded. You may have had to take a pay cut. You may not have been able to find a job at all. And so I think that was also probably what played into my mind. The idea is that I cannot rely on someone else giving me a check. I cannot rely on a 401k because, life can happen in such a way. Even COVID should have taught us this.
Mm-hmm.
Life can happen in such a way that you can't depend on these institutions to, give you this sweet ever after, this happy ending that you think you're entitled to, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, so that was a little bit of an aside coming back to the point, but now I want to jump back into your leap into real estate. So you
Mhm.
moved to Georgia.
Yeah.
At this point, your business was starting to take off. Um,
So actually, when I moved to Georgia, this is when I was still working the original online business. I
oh,
worked
okay.
for about maybe 2 years. And then that's when, probably 2 years later, that is when I had to go through a whole spiritual rehab thing. Let me tell you, because it's like when you leave your job or if you lose your job, I don't care which way it happens, you have to rediscover who you are, because often who we think we are is what we do, you
Yeah.
know? So that was a whole like discovery and like, oh gosh, like I call it spiritual rehabilitation. I feel like I was in rehab the whole time. Just like,
But I'm sure you would say those are very important
oh gosh, yes.
questions to address, like maybe the most important ones, right? Like, who am I?
Oh
That's
yeah,
that's pretty big, right?
for sure.
And I, that's a funny aside. I remember I have some friends from the West Coast. You're probably East Coast or the South or something. But like when they would come to DC and hang out, they just kind of, why are you asking me what I do? Like it's the very first question that anyone in the DC area asks. Is like, nice to meet you. What do you do?
Mm-hmm,
That's
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And apparently in the West Coast, maybe that's less common. Maybe people, I don't even know what the follow up question is. Nice to meet you.
I actually purposely try not to ask people that. I try not, when I meet them to say, oh, hey, you're such and such, well, what do you do? Like, I try not to do that. I'll ask them, well, what are you working on? What are you enjoying? What brought you here? That kind of thing. And probably some of that came from that year of torture, which was some of the best growth I've ever had, of figuring out who am I outside of what I do, kind of thing. But I think you're right. It probably definitely is like an East Coast thing of being like, oh, what do you do? And people are probably lazy and not trying to think of like other things to find engaging about someone, as it's almost like that twit, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
is probably like one of those nervous things. Like, I don't know what else to do but ask you about what you do, kind of thing.
Yeah. And if it's such a big part of so many people's lives, it makes sense, right? If
Hmm.
everyone's just working so hard all the time. All right. Well, let's jump into real estate. Let's
Yes.
get to it because obviously, as a real estate agent, real estate investor, and that's kind of where we connected. We reconnected. Tell me about your first deal. How'd you get into it?
So we actually started, like, I'm a researcher, I study. We started really studying like a year before we purchased our first deal. Because for us, we wanted to figure out what's our strategy. What type of real estate do we want to invest in? Why do we want to invest in this? And how can we not run out of money? So one of the first things we knew, like, we don't want to run out of money. So we need to think about like the type of deal. So I started like, following like just people online, especially Brandon Turner with Bigger Pockets. I know you and I are both fans.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I wanted to buy and hold. I knew that it was the type of investor I wanted to be, because at the end of the day, I wanted to retire on my real estate. And so that's what we kind of researched. And we also, during that time, this is a vital piece that I think a lot of people overlook when they want to get into real estate. They don't think about what do my personal finances look like right now? You know, what type of debt do I have right now? Is it good debt? Is it bad debt? And so for us, we decided that before we purchased our first property, we wanted to get rid of all of our debt, all of it,
Okay.
except our house. Really don't believe in paying off a house. That's just me. I don't believe in paying it off. You said to me, Sherita, I never want to buy a house for me personally living. I'm like, okay, that's a strategy in itself. I support you. As long as you're investing in real estate, I support you if you want to rent. That's totally fine. But so we just like got rid of like, which I've always hated debt. So like even before this, like we already paid off our cars, like credit card, stuff like that. Like that was already paid off. I think for us, we wanted to get rid of our student loans. So we combined had about $90,000 of student loans when we first got here to Georgia. And so then when we got serious about, okay, we're going to invest in real estate either a year and a half from now or 2 years from now, we just went on this crusade to pay off $90,000 worth of student loans. Wow. In any way I could find money, make money, and money my husband was bringing in, whatever it was coming from, we were throwing it at our debt, and we got rid of it. And so we purchased, I want to say we probably a year before we purchased our first investment property, which was 2019, we had already paid off our student loans at that point. And like I said, we had already paid off our cars and stuff like that. Like, I don't believe in stupid debt. Like I just don't.
Yeah, there's a difference. And it's funny you mentioned that, that, did you say you don't believe in paying off your house?
I don't.
That's something that is new to me. Like I hadn't heard that until very recently, and it blew my mind, right?
Yeah.
So I'll let you elaborate on that, because that's I think something that's contradictory to a lot of people's thinking,
it
right?
is.
Like in the back of your mind, I know for me, I always said, I'll pay off my house, have it free and clear,
That's the American dream.
And then I made it, right?
Yeah. So they teach us, go to work, buy a house, get a car, get the kid. Well, get the significant other, then get the kid. Although, we do it backwards these days. So anyway. So, you know what I'm saying? Like you get the picket fence, you get the house, you stay in it forever, whatever, like pay off your house. Everything's great. Guess what happens when you pay off your house? You're either almost broke or that's money you could have used to buy 3 other houses. So I say, this is just me. Don't pay off your house. Let someone else pay it off for you, either by you selling it, you renting it out, or leveraging the equity in it in order to buy something else. That's what I say. Because let's say you buy a house for $150,000 and you owe $100,000 on it, right? So let's say years later, you've been working tirelessly to, come up with either, let's say you get it in one lump sum, or let's say just over the years, you accumulate enough to pay off this $100,000 worth of debt. Well, here's the thing, most down payments on investment properties is 20-25%. How many houses could you have purchased with $100,000 versus one purchase of your primary home?
Exactly.
But you've worn out by this point anyway. It doesn't look the same.
And it doesn't put any money in your pocket, right? You're spending money every month paying that bill down.
It doesn't. Like, think of just about how many houses, investment properties you could have purchased with that $100,000 that you put into one property, your primary home. I just don't believe in it. I just don't. Not if you want to retire early. And no, I don't believe in it. No,
is that the main
limitation we have to unlearn? We do.
So that's huge. That's huge, and that, like I said, is something very new to me that really blew my mind. So, you had it figured out years ago. That's awesome.
Well, I mean, honestly, only up until 3 years ago. Like I happened to be sitting in the right conference and the speaker said it and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking that I was like, he's right. That had been 3 or 4 years ago. And I was like, oh no, I'm not
That's
paying.
why they call them aha moments. You're just like,
Yeah.
ah.
'Cause
Yeah, it's real.
it is
Um,
true.
so is that the main strategy? Like, let's start like, so you
Oh
bought your
yeah.
first
And I
deal.
keep cutting you
How do
off
you
course.
how do you
Yeah.
get from
Oh
one
yeah.
to 11?
So yeah.
11, right?
Yeah, 11.
Amazing.
So
That's
yes.
amazing.
So 2019, August 2019, we bought our first single family home. We knew we were we started off with the BRRRR strategy. Like, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna BRRRR. We bought it for $60,000. Now you wish you could find a house for $60,000. Like, those do not exist. Those are unicorns now. Those do not exist. Okay.
And where was this? Because I know I'm from the DC area, so that
So
never
this is,
existed, at least in
yeah.
my lifetime. Uh,
So this is Northwest Atlanta. Yeah.
okay, okay.
And actually there's usually never a straight line. I can tell people that I haven't had a deal where there hasn't been some type of complication or something. But we put in an offer. Originally it was listed for $70,000. I think I may have offered $67,000. The seller rejected it. And then, 2 or 3 weeks later, we heard nothing about it. So we went and we just, with my real estate agent at the time, we went and looked like at 12 different properties a day, including that one. We looked at it again. And I wanted to look at it again because I noticed the seller had reduced the price to $60,000. So I was like, okay, but he didn't call me back. What's going on?
That's
To let me
strange,
know,
yeah.
right? I already offered like $67,000. And so we ended up obviously getting the house. There was another a buyer who offered full price. We offered full price. They offered full price too as well. Actually, no, they offered more than us, but we had better terms that the seller liked. And so we ended up getting it for $60,000. And we renovated it. I mean, mind you, we had been looking before, but then we found this one. We ended up renovating it. And then, with BRRRR, after you renovate, you basically refinance it at that point and you pull out the cash so that you're able to go and purchase again soon afterwards. So that's what we did with that first property. Like I said, it was a single family home. We didn't know how good of a location it was at the time. It was one of those locations that you said to yourself, 3 to 5 years from now, this is going to be like the spot. It's going to be the new Fourth Ward. It's going to be, Emmon Park. It's going to be all these great things. And, but we thought that was 3 to 5 years from now. But everything's been so fast, right? Especially with COVID, like the real estate, just like all of a sudden, like just like it, like the amount of work we put into it, it appraised for, so we bought it for $60,000. It ended up, after the work we put into it, it appraised for $179,000. Right?
And how much time?
It took me much longer than I wanted to take. I was trying to take 3 months. It ended up taking me like 6 months instead.
Oh no, you made $100,000 in 6 months? Oh no.
Right? I never think about it. It's something that my husband says to me. He's like, "Oh, your life is so bad. You didn't hit the target, but you made $100,000." Like, yeah, people have to remind me. Yeah. So now I will tell you this. Now, here's a mistake I made.
Okay.
The rehab should have only cost me $30,000. This is my first renovation though, y'all. Okay. So you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. But the good thing is, you make that mistake on the first one, it doesn't sink you too badly. I ended up spending $35,000 more than I wanted to.
That's a lot. Yeah.
It is, it's like, oh my God, there's only supposed to put 30,000 and, made all kinds of mistakes and, not just in the rehab, but choices in terms of the people you hire. I mean, you don't know anything about supplies at that point. You're buying latex paint when you need like some water-based paint or, all kinds of stuff like that. Like, it's just like all the stuff you're trying to learn. And mind you, I'm a researcher. So it's not like I hadn't like study the stuff and put my little notebook together. You got to learn on the job.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, and still we got all our money back. And we got some additional money. So that allowed us to get ready right away. And we put a tenant in. Oh, guess what happened? After we refinanced, it appraised for $179,000. Like, to be honest, I don't even know how much it's worth now. It's probably like at least $230,000 now worth. And there's a big tech company that's moving like in that area. So I'm like, oh my gosh, we're gonna hold you forever, you sweet baby, you. So, and so we put a tenant in there in the middle of COVID.
Beautiful.
Yes, like literally, we listed it February 14th, 2020. Because remember, we started August 2019. Didn't finish, took me longer, took me more money. Listed it for rent February 14th of just last year. We didn't know what COVID was. And then March happened. We couldn't even have people do in-person showings like with our property manager.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, you know, they thought quickly and they did, and I guess, I don't know, maybe people were doing virtual showings. Like that was a thing. I didn't know it was a thing, but that's really what had to happen. And I want to say by March 9th, or maybe it was March, I think mid-March or something like that. That's when we got our tenant in the middle of COVID, you know, got our first tenant.
Not only in the middle, at the beginning when it was scariest, right? Like we knew
no
nothing.
One knew,
yeah.
Right. No one knew what it was going to be, you know? So yeah, that happened. And, you know, once we did that, I was like, you get the bug. Like after you get finished with it, in the middle of it, you're crying all the time. You're like, oh my gosh, like, should have done this, blah, blah, blah. But once you get done with that renovation and then you get that tenant in there, you're like, all right, we need to be like.
And you get that appraisal.
You get that appraisal. You're like, oh, I can do this. Like, let's do this again, kind of thing. Beautiful. I guess it's like having a baby. You forget how painful it was. It's just like.
That's a funny one because my wife forgot how painful it was, but I was there and I was probably more traumatized than her, and I haven't forgotten at all. But okay, so you just do that a few more times and now you're at 11, huh?
Well, I think that's when I said to myself, okay, apparently we can do this, right? But, you know, at that time, this is when you start revisiting your goals again. This is what we did. We said, okay, let's debrief what happened that went well, what didn't go so well, what will we do differently? Let's revisit our goals. And so at that point, we had to think to ourselves, okay, well, when do we want to retire? Like when do we want to retire Delvin, my husband, you know, out of full-time work? How many properties do we need to do that? Right. And so, and do we only need to focus on buying wholes? Do we need to incorporate something else into the mix? And so once we figured out how many properties we needed, then you start to restructure the type of properties and the type of deals that you're willing to invest in. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm open to flips at this point, just to get chunks of money, bigger chunks of money in to do certain things. But, you know, I also need to start looking into multifamilies because, you know, one is nice, but if you can double, triple your money on one deal, why not do that? And so then right away, we go under contract with a property that's excellent location in an area of Atlanta called Capitol View. Really, we got it under contract for, I think it was $125,000. Houses were selling for like $320,000, $340,000 in this neighborhood. Like, oh my gosh, this is an off-market deal too. Long story short, seller defaults. I'm so hurt and so disgusted at this point. Yeah, because I had spent so much money on just my due diligence, bringing in my contractors, getting bids. I knew this house inside and out. I knew what I was going to do to it to renovate it and to basically sell it. We were even stopping by other nearby open houses, just seeing like what were other people doing to these houses and things like that. And the seller defaults on me, you know? I was so hurt. I mean, like, oh my gosh, something that makes you question, like, oh, should I be doing this? Like, do you know how much work I just did? Well, that was like the best thing that could have happened for so many reasons. I mean, I don't even think you understand. Like, I think that was March 2020. What are we now? I don't even know what month we're in right now. So much stuff is going
We're in
on.
May.
Oh, we're in May. I knew it was in 2021. Are you
Oh
sure?
wait, no, we're in June.
See, you got
I
so
don't
much
either.
stuff going on. You didn't even know. Like,
I got some
your life
stuff
is
going on. Yeah.
popping. So I am still to this day realizing how much of a blessing it was that deal fell through. I'm still experiencing it literally right now. But I'll tell you the first thing that helped me realize it. Soon after we lost that deal, lo and behold, a duplex shows up, and I go under contract on it. And we do the same thing, we burr it. And this is the first time that I got to just see how sweet it was to collect rent, not just from like one tenant, but two.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the sweetest things. And the thing that was really nice is that one unit while we were renovating was already occupied. So while renovating, I was still able to collect some income while
Okay.
renovating.
There you go.
So that was even better. It's just like, okay, this extra income's coming in while I'm renovating this. And that's when I got the multifamily bug after that. I was like, if I get a single family, the only thing I'm going to do with a single family is I'm going to either flip it or I'm going to own or finance it. Other than that, when it comes to my buy and holds, they are multi-family properties. And that's when I switched
Wow.
up my strategy at that point. Just understanding, like, really is part of scaling your business, and so that's what I focused on. And then I hired a coach because I was like, we're doing pretty good, but I'm sure I'm only scratching the surface. When I hired a coach, that's when not only the type of properties that I purchased, like I kind of knew what I needed to purchase, but I didn't realize how many different types of deals I could participate in. That's what having my coach really helped me understand, the type of deals that I could learn, the type of deals that I didn't have to walk away from just because it didn't fit in this neat little like goal or strategy thing that you have going on. Like, that's what I learned from that. And so, now I'll buy a whole, if I find a good flip, I won't walk away from it if I can do something with it. If it's something that would be suited for a wholesale, I consider those. I just consider a whole like number of different things to fund the ultimate goal, which is to, have at least 40 to 50 properties, in order to basically not have to work if you don't want to. You work because it's fun, at that
Exactly.
point.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. It's a big step to realize that there's a whole world of opportunity out there for you. And then you've already started to dive into your education, which is required to be able to navigate the world beyond the stock market. But the next step is to take action. So if you want a chance to invest with me and my team, sign up for our investor club at legatoinvest.com/invest. We'll schedule a call with you, get to know you, your background, and your investment objectives. And if there's a good fit, we'll start to present you with live opportunities to invest in multifamily apartment deals. So again, legatoinvest.com/invest. Thanks again. Exactly. So, okay, so that's a really powerful idea, right? So this coach came on board. You found someone you trust. You found someone who's been there before. And it seems like all of a sudden from you had the hammer, but now you got a screwdriver, you got a saw, you got all these other tools in your tool belt.
Yeah.
So you can respond to kind of whatever life throws at you in this investing world, which is amazing. That sounds ideal, right? Because we don't know. And just if we focus too narrowly, I guess, on a strategy, you're letting opportunities pass by. So
Yeah,
how
you are.
powerful.
And I didn't even know that. I did not realize that I should at least consider, what can I do with this? Or what can someone I know do this and I benefit from it as well. Because at the end of the day, in real estate, you need money. I don't care what anyone said, like, oh, you can get this, like, no money, blah, blah, blah. There's money that's been put into this.
Yeah,
Money
yeah.
is coming from somewhere. You got to have money. And so literally from 2019 to where we are today, between that time, 11 units, and like you said, 5 different tools in my toolbox now. And although I don't have to use them all, or I don't even use them all, I know how to, or at least I know how to get them started. I know who to go to find out, okay, listen, someone gave me this hammer. I don't know what to do with it, but I got it. I know this deal needs a hammer, but can you show me, like, what to do with this hammer now that I have it, kind of thing.
Amazing. So I think that's a really valuable thing. So you had this coach. So was that something you always knew you would want? Was that something that you always knew?
After our first deal, yeah, I knew. After our first deal, I was like, I need to hire a coach. And I also said, I need to be a part of a networking group. I was like, I need to be around more real estate investors, people who are eating, sleeping, talking, living real estate. Like, that's what I need to be a part of. And that's really how I found my coach, is because I started to attend a local real estate association. I don't know what they call it in your area, but here is South Atlanta RIA, there's North Atlanta RIA, there's all types of RIAs. But I, at that time it was South Atlanta RIA, now it's RIA USA, but that's one of the networking groups that I joined. And I'm the type of person too, especially when you've been a business owner, you take more calculated risk when you've been in business long enough. You can't, tiptoe around stuff. You're just like, look, I got to spend some money because I want to make some money. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to even gamble sometimes because, high risk, high reward. And so I wasn't afraid at that time of pulling the trigger on a coach. It was worth it to me. I was like, you know what? She seems credible. She's done like 100, 200 deals at this point. She owns commercial real estate. I'm just like, come on, I'm going to hire her. And it was one of the best decisions that I made. That changed the trajectory of my business, was when I hired someone and I started networking with other real estate investors. But see, at the same time, you understand, this is a short span of time.
Very fast.
I knew, I was like, this is what I have to do. And you know what made me know? This is what made me know I needed to hire a coach. Because all the people who I was watching online, like the big guys that we know, the big girls and guys that are huge in real estate, all of them had a coach and still probably have a coach today.
Oh, interesting.
Even my coach has a coach.
That's big. That's a very, very powerful thing. Because yeah, you always think, oh, the one who's they got it all figured out. But that's a really cool thing that I made a connection with recently, is even though maybe I haven't reached the highest, goals that I've put out there for myself, I'm still in a position where I can add some value to someone. I'm maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead of someone who
you're being humble, Alex. You're a lot of steps ahead.
But that is kind of like the impetus of this, and I would encourage you to do the same thing. Like at the end, well, we can do it now. I want you to think about like what whoever might be listening to this show, or on all your social media activities, and you're in a position where you can add a lot of value. And so if it's students that you're looking for, put it out there. If it's whatever it might be, I definitely just encourage you, because it's very impressive what you've done too. And
thank you.
I will believe. And the reason I was laughing just a minute ago is because you said, like, yeah, it was like late, it's been just over a year, maybe a year and a half.
Yeah, I'm just like, whoa, this is fast. Yeah.
So I was laughing because it was like the Tiger King era of COVID. Yes. Which seems like it was just yesterday, but you probably went from like 1 or 2 properties to 11, while we've been just like, while we've just been watching Netflix and kind of like getting fat and you've been out there hustling. It's amazing. And
Trust
very
me,
inspirational.
thank you. And trust me, it is hard. It is hard. Oh my gosh.
Good.
Is you're smiling and you're crying.
That's true. When I called you to schedule this interview, you were not going through the best of times.
No, and I was honest with you.
Yes,
I
you
was
were.
like not sugarcoating it.
You said you were on your hands and knees scrubbing grout from a
grout.
tile
Yeah,
that
grout.
like a contractor did a bad job or something, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, and it wasn't so much they did a bad job. It's just you crapped all over your good job.
oh,
It's
that's almost
easy to
worse.
cover up some floors. So yeah, that's that's kind of what happened. And to their defense, you have multiple, when you have, this is a big rehab. So you're having multiple people in and out, and it's hard to like pay attention to every single person that walks through. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm paying you, so I shouldn't be cleaning up behind you. Okay.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I pay you to do. So, so yeah, so when you called me, like I was so exhausted. I was still in the middle of doing everything. Like I had a putty knife, I had a sponge, I had some cud cutter. Cud cutter is your friend, guys. Especially if you have paint. I'm telling you, it's the best kept secret. It's cud cutter. So yeah.
Cutter. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any last words of encouragement or wisdom for the audience? Where
Woo.
can they reach you?
Yeah. I mean, I would, there's so much. It's hard just to grab to one thing. But I would say this, I've always believed that if you have a burning desire to do something, it's not something that's just coming from yourself. I think it's something that's implanted, especially that thing that you just can't shake. So I would encourage you to not ignore it, to at least explore it, and to see where it takes you. I heard this and I can't remember who said it, but doubt and fear, they are backstabbers. They will betray you every single time. And I'm not telling you like to quit your job today and stuff like that. Trust me, everything we did was calculated. All right. We didn't just, they were risky, but they were calculated risks. But I would say you're going to kick yourself in the butt if you don't at least get out of there and try. I'm a type of person, I hate failure. I do, even though failure is just a part of life. I'm a super competitive person. But every single failure has truly been what was supposed to happen. It was the part of the great plan. And so I would say get out there and try, get out there and get a mentor, get a coach, pay for your coach, tip your bartender, Okay. That's where you're going to get the best out of life, the best out of what you want, and to your question, what am I looking for? I'm gonna be honest. This is what I'm looking for right now. I'm looking for private money. And when I say private money, I'm saying private money for people that I know and are not strangers. Or if you are a stranger, you want to become someone who I do know for FTC purposes, then I'm definitely, you want to learn more about private lending and how we make money for our lenders. Would love to talk more. Definitely, we're getting more into partnerships, hopefully I can partner with you on one of your big deals at some point, Alex. But we are getting into more exploring partnership opportunities. I recently had two people between my husband and both of us just say, how can we partner with you on deals? And I mean, these are people who just have money. They're just like, and that's something else, words of wisdom. If you do not have time to invest, give your money to someone who you trust, who's another investor, so they can make money for you. Okay. The ultimate goal, right? Look at us. Hey, look at Alex.
Yeah, we're right here.
Money, okay. Look what he's doing. He's how he's built. Give him some money. But the ultimate goal of anyone, including investors, to be a lender. That's my ultimate goal, to get to the point I'm just lending, I'm lending to good investors who are out there. So yeah, that's what we're looking for. And also, I'm so busy right now. I really can't take on students. I only have one person that I do consulting with, just because she makes me a sucker. She makes a sucker out of me. So she literally texted me today, like, can I get your calendar? She's like, I'll pay you. Can I get? I'm like, oh, I don't have the time. But anyway, so yeah, hopefully by the end of 2022 or beginning of 2023, I'll be taking on some students in my multi-family madness academy.
Oh,
So
that's a
yeah.
catchy name. You are a marketer.
Yeah. Do not take that to copywriting it right now. It's out there in the airways. This is recorded, so therefore I already have copywriting. I already have my copyrights by common law. So just letting you know, okay?
Oh,
Don't try to do
legalese again.
that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's taken. But
Well,
yeah, I guess I should give you guys like my Insta handle. It's so funny. I gotta look it up. I didn't grow up with Instagram, so you can connect with me at Rita Wall. That's RITAWALL. That's _ loves RE, standing for real estate. So you can connect with me there, connect with me on LinkedIn. I need to update my LinkedIn profile because all you see is my marketing stuff. I'm Sherita Wallace there. But yeah, definitely connect with me on Instagram, LinkedIn. You can even message me on my Facebook page, which is SD Buyer Properties. That's ESBY, Buyer BUYER Properties on Facebook. So yeah, thank you
beautiful.
for having me.
Thank you so much, Sharita. It's really good to hear your story more in depth. And I think it's added a ton of value. People are going to be inspired. People are going to it might have been just that kick in the butt that someone needed to hear. So thank
I
you. That's
hope
awesome.
so. I hope it was helpful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.